Hi hobby friends. Phew, it has been far too long. If you've been watching for a while, apologies for the long absence, and if you're new around here, welcome. Today we paint up all of the Leviathan Space Marines, but not in your go-to ultramarine blue or any of the other major Legion schemes. Today we go old school. Today we paint Tiger Claws. The Tiger Claws, or latterly the Astral Claws, are a Badab war faction. They are in fact the faction that became the Red Corsairs of the Chaos Space Marines, which raises the question, how did we end up with Primaris Tiger Claws? I'm going with the explanation, something lost in the warp, something Primaris Tiger Claws. It's a classic 40k storyline, absolutely watertight. So, after a Burgundy Prime and this heavy Zenithal in a fetching pink, the last underpainting stage is taken care of with some regular old white ink, focusing on anywhere that would catch the light or, frankly, anywhere that looks good with a highlight. For me, that means mostly heads and pauldrons with a little volumetric shading on the arms and legs. Oh, and some backpack action too, of course. With that done, it's time to get these chaps a little closer to their final colour, with an overall spray of Vallejo Xpress colours, Imperial Yellow. These claws did end up being fairly yellow for a bunch of tigers, so you could always go with a deeper orange if you like, but in any case, all the paints I used here are listed in the description as per usual. You can also find links to a Discord server, Element Games affiliate link for a zero-cost channel support, and a Patreon if you're feeling flush and really like the content here. Now, as much as I love the super speedy, sexy gradient the airbrush provides, it is also pretty adept at flattening out the finer details of a mini. But no worries, it's super simple to bring back our definition by mixing up some black and burnt umber oil paints and thinning them down to a wash consistency. Wick that into the panel lines and recesses, and all those lovely details come back to life with very little effort. This is all looking a little Imperial fisty at the minute though, so let's get some tiger stripes on these bad boys. A decent white paint and a biggish brush with a good tip, and this stage will not be nearly as daunting as it might first seem. Getting more than 30 seconds of decent footage, however, is apparently impossible. After all that white is done, just following a reference image I pulled up on Google, I went back and added a thinner black stripe down the middle of all the white ones, and that was the tiger pattern done. Despite seeming like a big deal, this stage took considerably less time than, say, the guns, and was pretty relaxing to do once I worked out how to get the shapes I wanted. Bonus tip, with a little rejigging and some different colours, this pattern would look great as camo as well. Let's get those guns done now. This was by far the grindiest process of this whole mini. I think we all assume doing what looks like fiddly detail work, like those stripes, will be the most time-consuming or laborious part, but in my experience it's things like this, blacking out specific details. So while I do that, and because I didn't have enough decent relevant footage, let's go back to talking about the stripes briefly. One top tip to consider if you're doing any kind of line work on your mini is this. Your brush is a 3D tool. What I mean by that is, when using a pen for example, it doesn't really matter how much pressure you put on the pen, you're always going to get more or less a pretty uniform line thickness. A brush, on the other hand, will bloat out and draw back together as you push and pull it against a surface, leaving you with variable line thicknesses. With a pen then, you only make adjustments in 2 dimensions, up and down, left and right. With a brush, you have a 3rd dimension, in and out, that you have to pay attention to in order to get the line you want. It's a small detailed brush control, but I don't feel like people mention it enough, and being consciously aware of it might help you improve your line work on your minis for things like freehands, hazard stripes, or hey, even tiger patterns. A massive thanks, by the way, as always, to the supreme folk whizzing by your screen right now. These are the patrons that stick with the channel through thick and thin and help me get these videos to all of you. Your support means the world to me. Alright, so black with a silver dry brush and some red details on the guns, as well as all the other assorted details, and we are well on our way to done. Those new detail bits do look a little bit stuck on, however, as they don't really have the shading the main armour does. Also, despite all that reddish underpainting, we still look a tad on the green side in the shadows for my taste, so let's hit both those issues with a gentle pass of orange through the airbrush. As you can see, all this involves is some fairly loose spritzing from underneath to fill out those shadows and reincorporate the details in tiger pattern. Doing this sort of late stage shadow enhancement can add tons of oomph to your midtones, which should be doing the heavy lifting on hue information, and it adds loads and loads of depth to your overall paint job. Alright, after some off-camera work on the bases and a few more bits and bobs, we are all done. I deviated a fair amount from the original art on these guys because I wanted to pay homage to the old school scheme, but give it a bit more of a contemporary twist to suit the more modern design on the Primaris chappies. Although I'm only just now getting this video out to you, all this lot was done in fairly regular hobbying hours between the 5th and the 15th of June, so just over 2 minis per day on average, and not on Pro Painter hours. A nice quick scheme then, with a smidge of nostalgia and great game board presence, I reckon. But how do you think I did? Let me know in the comments below, and feel free to ask any questions. A like and sub is always greatly appreciated, and you can show extra love with the super like button or by heading over to that linked Patreon page. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you next time.